All right. Okay. Well, again, welcome to class. It's been a week, and it's been kind of a crazy week because last week when we were in class, that's when all the commotion in Washington, D.C. was going on. And afterwards, I know when I saw the news, I was like, what the heck is going on here? So it seems like there has been even more uncertainty. And so anyway, yeah, Jordan?
I read something that I find pretty funny about is that all the people that went and virtually attacked the Capitol building can be arrested and receive prison time of up to 10 years, according to Trump's
His own,
law
one of the laws he signed
about destroying federal property during the Black Lives Matter movement when that was
right. I read that too. So, well, this is not a class about politics, so I will just stick to economics. Now, did everybody watch the video posted before this class? Okay, good. All right. Oh, you know what? Before we get into that, let me introduce you your best friend for the semester, your TA, Brigham. Brigham, has joined us for class, and he'll continue to join us most days, right? Right. So Brigham, go ahead and introduce yourself really quick, and then also just announce again your office hours in case some students didn't get it.
Yeah. So my name is Brigham Emmett. I am actually an Econ minor, but I really love economics. I'm a senior. My office hours are going to be on Mondays from 11:30 to 12:30, and then on Thursdays from 5 to 6. Most of you guys should have gotten the email. Let me know if you didn't. If you guys need another time outside of those hours to meet, just shoot me an email and let me know, and I'll be happy to figure something out with you.
Okay, thank you, Brigham. Yeah, so I've had Brigham for a couple of different classes, I think. He's a really good student, and he can be an additional resource. I asked him to pick office hours outside of mine so that if mine somehow don't work for you, hopefully his office hours will work for you. And I also received the information on the online Econ tutoring lab. And the hours are a little bit different than what I posted in the syllabus from before, so I will adjust that, but you have that open pretty much every day from morning to fairly late in the afternoon, so that's another resource you can utilize to have your questions answered. Okay. All right. Any questions about Brigham or for Brigham, not about Brigham? Okay, if not, then I forgot there's one more administrative thing that I need to take care of, which is starting today, I will be taking attendance because we do have that attendance policy. And I can't remember if I told you at the end of last class or not, we will use a tool called Top Hat. And there are a few ways of doing this, but you need to first have a Top Hat account and then join our class. And our class join code. So if you go to the Google App Store, if you want to just, or Apple App Store, if you want to just do the app on your phone, just search for Top Hat. It's one word, download it. If you are on a computer, go to tophat.com and create an account. The only thing you need to do to make sure you do is to use your BYU Idaho email. Okay, because BYU Idaho has a contract with Top Hat. If you use your BYU email, you will not be charged. It is free for you. If you use your personal email, Top Hat will charge you money. Okay, so use your school email. You don't have to check that email after you use it to set up this account. I mean, well, you want to check that email because that's the only one I have to contact you. But for this purpose, please make sure you don't use your personal ones, though, because I don't want you to end up being charged money for it. Okay, and once you create an account, you can join a class by putting a join code in, and the join code for our class is 334 334-604. Okay, so I'll put that in the chat. 334-604. Okay, so if you put that code in, it should add you to this class called Econ 151, Section 7, Winter 2021. Okay, if you're having trouble, please let me know.
Question.
Sure.
Is it the Brigham Young University Idaho Canvas one or the
Canvas? Yeah, because we use Canvas for our class. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and then, okay, once you have joined our class, then what's going to happen is every time we have class, I will tell you in the very beginning a code to take your attendance. Now, once you have created your account, you can record your attendance by using the app or logging online or just sending a text message to a number with that code. So you have 3 different options. And today, once you have joined the class, the attendance code is 1772. So far I have 20 students that have joined the class. So, but I will put the attendance code in 1772. Okay, so I put the attendance code in the chat as well, if you want to check that. Okay. All right, anybody having trouble registering for Top Hat?
Do I need to get on and do that right now, or can I do it after class?
You probably want to do that right now because that code will be closed, or the attendance opportunity will be closed. So that's why I'm giving you a few minutes right now to do it.
Where do we put in the code at? I came in right as you were explaining it.
Okay, so did you hear the part about joining a class?
No.
Okay, so if you go to Top Hat, either download the app or go to tophat.com, create an account using your school email. Okay, otherwise you have to pay. And then you use the 334604 code that I have in the chat. I guess if you just joined, I don't know if you saw that. So 334604 join code. Okay, to join the class, and then the attendance code is 1772. Okay, that's for Top Hat, either the app or tophat.com. Okay, anybody else having trouble? Yeah, Fo?
Sorry, it's just taking me a while. It signed me out. My bookmark's not working. When is it going to disappear? Like right after class, or?
If you need extra time today, I will leave it open after class for half an hour or something.
Okay.
Yeah, but in the future, this will only be for the beginning of the class. Yeah, today I guess it's a little bit different. All right, anybody else having trouble? I only got 28 people.
My BYU email isn't working, so I'm struggling with it.
Yeah, my email's not working either.
Oh, really? Your emails are not working? Okay, well then.
Are you guys using the email that has like a little bit of letters and numbers, or just your username and at BYUI?
Yeah, because your BYUI email should be the one with numbers. Like it should be the first 3 letters of your last name and then a bunch of numbers. That's the one.
Right.
If you use your username, that's not going to work very well. Thanks, Franco. All right. Well, so let's just.
Mine's still not working even when I'm using my email.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave this open till after class for half an hour, and you guys can maybe keep trying after that. So I thought this was gonna be quick, but I can't just keep waiting. So I got 30 people in, so that means there are 8 of you that are having trouble. So I will leave this open, and at the end of the class, I'll ask you how many of you are still not registered, and then we'll figure out a time for you to finish, okay? All right, so now going to the content of this unit. So you've been studying in Unit 1. You should have read chapters 1 through 3. I know that there was a hiccup with concept check quiz. I apologize for that because at the beginning, only one of you emailed me in my regular email account, and the rest of you just all messaged me in Canvas. But even though I told my email many times, I trust Canvas source, but it still doesn't show up in my email app. It goes to this cluster folder. So I didn't see the other emails. I only saw that one email until I logged on a couple hours later in Canvas and saw that a lot of people were having trouble. So, but I hope with the extension of time, everything worked out. I didn't hear anything from anybody else with problems. So I hope that means you got it figured out. Okay. Now, you were also supposed to watch the video before today. So in the video, I went over the questions on the discussion sheet, which was also in your module. I hope you were able to follow along. And I skipped questions 7 through 10 because that is the hardest part of this unit. And I'm going to talk about it with you today in class by going over that exercise at the end of your discussion sheet. Now, before we get into that, any questions, concerns, confusions about things you watched in the video? Did everything make sense, or you have a comment about something? Were you able to watch it? I guess I gotta make sure. Okay, everybody watched it? Okay, good.
I actually don't know how to get to the videos. I'm so sorry. I missed week 1.
Okay, you added the class late, right?
Yes, I did. I
Okay.
apologize.
Yeah,
for that.
it's so if you go into your Canvas course and click on modules, and we're in Unit 1 right now, so we're doing 1 unit a week, and there's a link in there. It's called Unit 1 lecture video. Okay.
When do you want to watch the videos?
What?
When do you want us to watch each of the videos?
You're supposed to watch it by Monday, because remember on Monday we don't meet in Zoom, and that's
Okay.
when you're supposed to be watching the videos. Okay. And by today, I expect you to have watched the video, understood a lot of things, and then come with questions. Okay. Yeah. So I can't remember exactly how many, but at least a couple from each of my class emailed me on Monday about why they couldn't log into class and stuff, and asked questions that we talked about last week, which actually made me happier about doing videos, because that means when I had a live meeting last week, then a few of you did not get the key information. So having a video means you could go back and watch it again. So when we have live explanations, you don't miss things. But anyway, see. Okay. So no questions about what you watched in the video, guys? No comments either? All right. Okay. That's a little unusual, but all right. Then.
Hey, Brother Ma.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was trying to find what it's called. It's like the question that I had. Is it the PPE, the line that shows like the potential
PPS. Yeah,
the PPS. Can you explain a little bit about that? I was just struggling to get the concept of it.
Yeah, that is actually exactly what we're going into right now. Okay, so.
Oh, okay. That explains it.
Yeah. So yeah, because that is the hardest part of this unit, and so hopefully when you were watching the video, you were able to follow along with the discussion 1 file in module Unit 1, and if you haven't, please go to our campus course and go to Unit 1 in modules, and the last thing in Unit 1 is this file, this doc called discussion 1. Okay, and what we're gonna do is to do the exercise in there right now. Okay, so you can see that in the beginning there are 12 questions I asked you in discussion 1, and in the video I went over questions 1 through 6, and then 11 and 12. So I left 7, 8, 9, 10 for this class. Okay, and with the exercise, what I'm going to do is I will introduce this exercise, and then I'll put you into breakout rooms. I want you to work on this first question. I'll give you just a few minutes, or probably just a couple minutes, and then you can work on this first question. Then I will end the breakout rooms and bring you all back, and then ask you the questions. I mean, how you answered it, and we'll talk about if you answered it right or not. But feel free to talk. Like when I put you in breakout rooms, that's giving you a smaller, more secure environment, so you can talk to each other and ask questions. Say, hey, how did you draw your line? And maybe hold your drawing up to the camera, or if you're doing it on a computer, share your screen and help each other figure this out. Okay, don't just sit there in silence and try to work on this on your own. So the exercise, the setup says, we have two countries, the United States and Brazil. Okay, and they are producers of airplanes, the only two producers of airplanes in the world, and they each make two products, large and small airplanes. That's it. Okay, and then I tell you, they both have constant opportunity costs, and then U.S. can make 30 large airplanes a year if they only made 30 large airplanes, and if we only made small ones, then we can make 40, and Brazil can make 10 large airplanes if they only made large ones, or they could make 30 if they only made small ones. And then part A asks you to draw the PPFs for both the US and Brazil. Okay, so this shouldn't be a very complicated question. Okay, so I'm gonna just randomly put you into rooms for now, because I haven't divided you into groups yet. But then go ahead and join that room and work together and talk about how you would draw that, okay? And I'll bring you back in a couple minutes. Okay, Will, are you there? You should join your room. Yeah, there we go. Hey guys, you guys got the short end of the straw where the system assigned me to your room, but
I don't think that's a bad thing.
well, I'm not really here to tell you the answer, so really the two of you are having a discussion. I can answer any questions, of course, but you only have two people instead of 3 or 4, so.
Sure. So we're just supposed to be discussing how we're drawing the line and then doing so?
Yeah, so actually draw PPFs for the US and Brazil based on this setup of the scenario, and see if you can draw them, the PPFs for these two countries. And if your answers are different, then talk about why you drew it the way you did, and figure out who's right.
Right. How do you suggest we draw them in a Word document?
Well, no, you don't have to draw it on this Word document that I put out. You're not turning it in. I guess I should have been more clear.
Oh, okay.
You're not turning this in. This is for your exercise. Okay. Yeah.
So I can just do it on a piece of paper.
Yeah, do it on a piece of paper. I better go out and tell everybody this via message.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so now, given this, right, by looking at how we came to the opportunity costs in US and Brazil by setting the end quantities of your maximum quantities of each products equal to each other, then dividing one side to reduce it to 1, and the other side then will be the opportunity cost for you. So given that, okay, which country here has the comparative advantage in large airplane production?
The US.
Okay, how did you come to that conclusion? Like, why?
Because a large plane is, well, because with like small planes, you're looking at less, like they're worth less. Like small planes are worth less to the United States, but they can make more of them in the United States versus the small planes.
Okay, so so you're comparing the quantities of small airplanes in the US versus Brazil, right? Okay, Jake, you raise your hand.
Yeah, so the US has the comparative advantage with the large airplanes because they have to give up less small airplanes.
Okay, another word is the US has the lower opportunity cost here, right, in producing large airplanes. Okay, so both of your conclusions are correct, but the reasoning I want to make sure you understand. When it comes to comparative advantage, okay, you are comparing the same opportunity, the opportunity cost for the same product in different producers. And whoever has the lower opportunity cost of the product has the comparative advantage. So here, when the US produces one large airplane, we give up 4/3 of small airplanes. When Brazil produces one large airplane, they have to give up 3 small airplanes. So we give up less. So we have the comparative advantage in large. Yeah.
Is that why in a lot of cases countries like for example the United States, why we give resources and things to other countries because the labor cost is lower, so they actually have more resources to produce? So we're basically lowering our opportunity cost because they're producing it for a lower labor cost if we give them the materials. Is that correct?
So yes, but not exactly accurate, right? So you gotta think not in the terms of labor cost alone, but opportunity cost for labor. Okay, so here we're not talking about whether the U.S. is making a large airplane and how much it costs us in dollars, and versus how much it costs in dollars for a Brazilian large airplane. We're saying that when we make a large airplane, how many small airplanes are we giving up in opportunity, right? So if you're looking at opportunity cost, then that's the comparative advantage, okay? So,
would that be like compared to us making clothing in the United States, it's cheaper for us to outsource that and then we give that up so that we can make higher technology?
Yes. Okay. So yeah, we make things that are, that cost us less in opportunity than other countries, and then they make things that's relatively low in cost and opportunity cost for them, not necessarily dollar cost. Okay, I'll talk more about that in a second. I think it may help clarify things, but I do want to ask you an important question here, though. So we just determined the U.S. has the comparative advantage in large airplanes because we have the lower opportunity cost. Then can I safely conclude without doing any more calculations that Brazil must have the comparative advantage in small airplane production? Okay, I see Fo nodding and I see John shaking. So some nodding, some shaking. Okay. Well, the answer is actually yes. Okay, comparative advantage is comparative because you compare opportunity costs. So because the US has a lower opportunity costs in large airplane production, then we must have the higher opportunity costs in small airplane production, because opportunity costs of two different products are really mathematical inverses of each other. Okay, so let me show you with math how that works. Okay, so we go back to, okay, got rid of a little bit too much, but we go back to our original equations. Okay, and now to determine if you want to verify, okay, we need to figure out who has the comparative advantage in small airplanes. So that means we want to figure out how much 1s equals to in both countries. To do that, in the US, we divide both sides by 40, and that gives you 3/4 of a large, which we already knew from our slope. In Brazil, you divide both sides by 30, and that gives you 1/3 of a large. So clearly, Brazil has the lower opportunity cost, but if you notice, okay, when in the US, 1L is 4/3 small, okay, 1 small is 3/4 large. In Brazil, 1 large is 3 small is 3/1, really, right? And then 1 small is 1/3. So these opportunity costs are really just flipping the ratio for each product. So when you have a lower cost in large airplane production and you flip the number to calculate your small airplane production, then that cost must become bigger than the other producer, right? So that's why when you know the US has comparative advantage in large airplane production, you don't have to calculate the numbers to know that Brazil must have the comparative advantage in small airplane production, okay? That make sense? So in fact, I want you to write down that, you know, comparative advantage is, well, I should say, no producer can have comparative advantage in both products, because for the purpose of this class, you only deal with 2 product cases. So no producer will have comparative advantage in both products, and that means one will always have one. And the only exception is if you have identical opportunity costs in everything, then nobody has comparative advantage. You're exactly the same if your opportunity costs are the same. Okay, John, what's your question?
Oh, it was me.
Oh, yeah, John raised his hand first, so then we'll yeah.
Okay, I was just wondering if like that you to figure out the opportunity cost, you divided it by itself and so on and so forth. Is that the same equation or same concept that you can do to find the opportunity cost on the graphs that have the curve instead of the straight line?
No, because yeah, good question. This only works with the straight lines, okay? Because when you do the equation like this and divide it, you're assuming that this opportunity cost is true for every quantity you produce. But with a curved PPF, then that actually changes all the time, and that's when you need to use calculus to figure out what your opportunity cost is, okay? Because it's actually always changing. Okay. But good question. Okay, Trevor.
So on the, I think it was a concept quiz, there was like the guy and the girl, they were both producing something. She had the comparative advantage and like the other advantage.
Okay.
How did she have both advantages then?
Okay, let's talk about that. So what is the other advantage called, guys? Do you remember?
Absolute advantage.
Okay, yeah. How do you find absolute advantage? How do you determine who has absolute advantage in something?
I'm guessing the one that has more material and more resources.
Okay.
Compared to the other person.
Yeah, Jordan?
The one that's able to make the same thing with fewer resources.
Okay, yeah.
So both have a lower opportunity cost.
No, actually, well, we're not considering opportunity costs because you cannot have a lower opportunity cost in both products. That's what we just talked about, right? If you have lower opportunity costs in large airplanes, your opportunity cost in small airplanes must be higher than the other producer. Okay, so you'll never have lower opportunity costs in everything. However, okay, like Jordan pointed out, comparative advantage is determined by who can make this product with fewer resources, or another way of looking at it is given the same resources, who can make more of something. Okay, so in this particular scenario, I didn't tell you any specific resource other than time, 1 year, right? So time is a key resource here. So in 1 year, given the same resource, who can make more small airplanes between the US and Brazil?
The U.S.
The US. We can make 40, they can only make 30, right? So we have the absolute advantage in small airplane production. Now, who has the absolute advantage in large airplane production?
Still the US.
Still the US. Okay, so when it comes to absolute advantage, we can have both absolute advantage lie within the same producer. Okay, because that is not any mathematical inverses involved in that determination. So one producer can have absolute advantage in everything, but no producer can have comparative advantage in everything. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, trade is based on comparative advantage. Okay. So even though the US has absolute advantage in both large and small airplanes, because we only have comparative advantage in large airplanes, the trade theory tells us that we should still trade with Brazil, and we can get gain. I'll show you in the next few minutes before our class is over how that works. But this is something I like to explain a lot, because in news media especially, you hear people say, well, look at us, Brazil is so inferior in production of both small and large airplanes. Why are we trading with them, right? We're only benefiting those Brazilian workers and taking jobs away from US workers. We should stop trading with them and make everything in the US because we're better at everything anyway. Well, that is a false statement, because that is trying to determine trade based on absolute advantage, which is not how trade works. Okay, I designed this question specifically to show you that the US can be superior in both production, and still we can gain from trade. So let's move on and do this because of time. So question C asks you to find the acceptable range for the terms of trade. Okay, so terms of trade is really a relative price, but we don't call it price for two reasons. First of all, we haven't introduced the idea of dollars and etc. yet, and second of all, here we're just assuming we're exchanging thing for thing, so no money involved. So we call it terms of trade. So what this is saying is, well, if these two countries actually decide to come together and trade, what is this range of prices, if you will, that both countries will accept, right? So because we can't just say, well, the US has the comparative advantage in large airplanes. By the way, according to your book, if we have the comparative advantage in large airplanes, what should we do with our production? Anybody remember? Nathan, do you remember? Robinson? No? Okay, anybody want to help him out?
If we have a comparative advantage, then we should maximize that manufacturing of that product.
Okay, yeah, very good. So that is called specialization, right? So trade theory says if you have a comparative advantage in large airplane production, you need to produce only large airplanes and then sell them in exchange for small ones, okay? Because you're not that good at small ones, okay? So that means if the two countries come together to trade, the US will be selling large airplanes and in exchange for small ones. To find the terms of trade, the range that both countries will agree to, you need to think about the bottom lines from both countries. So for the US, when we sell large airplanes, what is the minimum amount of small airplanes we will accept when we sell?
You mean for small from Brazil?
Yeah, from Brazil. When we sell large airplanes to Brazil, how many small ones do we need to get at a minimum?
4/3.
Okay, 4/3 of small airplanes, right? Because we'll say, Brazil, you got to pay me at least 4/3 of small airplanes per large, because otherwise it's lower than my cost of production, right? So we're saying the value of one large airplane needs to be greater than or equal to 4/3 of small airplanes from the US's perspective, right? Now, if you can cover up the 4/3 of small airplanes with the less than or equal to sign, just leave one L there. So think from Brazil's perspective. Brazil, when they're buying large airplanes, what is the maximum amount they're willing to pay in small? 3, right? So said they will say, okay, fine, US, but to me, the value of one large airplane got to be less than or equal to 3 small, because if I pay you any more than 3, it's higher than my own cost of production. I'm not going to pay more than my own cost, right? So all of a sudden, you find this range, this is the special range in which both countries will benefit from trade. Both countries will agree to trade, and as long as you stay within this range. Okay, does that make sense? So the bottom line then is the acceptable range for the terms of trade always lies in between the opportunity cost of the two countries for the same product. Okay, so that's the principle I want you to remember. Okay, all right, so now let's look at D and E really quick. Okay, so D says, okay, so before trade, assume the US produces and consumes 18 large airplanes and 16 small ones, and Brazil produces and consumes 8 large and 6 small ones. And if the terms of trade is 1 large for 2 small, show how trade is beneficial. And the hint says, what is the total world production compared to before trade? Now, there's nothing special about 18, 16, and 8 and 6. I just arbitrarily picked a point on your PPF for the US and Brazil. So there's nothing special. You can pick any point on that PPF and make this work, okay? Now, the way to show this, according to the hint, is to look at the total production in the world before and after trade. So let's do that, right? So before trade, the US is making 18 large and 16 small, right? And Brazil is making 8 large and 6 small. So the world total production, right, because we assume that these are the only 2 producers for airplanes, the world production is 26 large and 22 small, right? Everybody with me? How we got here? Okay. Now, we said the terms of trade is 1 large for 2 small. Is that within the acceptable range for both countries? Will both countries agree to this? It is, right? It is between 4/3 of small and 3 small. So we know trade will happen. So after trade happens, we know that the US will specialize in large airplanes. So we'll make 30 large and 0 small, right? That's what trade theory tells us to do. We should specialize in our comparative advantage. And Brazil will make 0 large and 30 small, because 30 is the largest small amount they can, largest amount of small airplanes they can make. So the world all of a sudden has 30 large airplanes and 30 small airplanes to consume. So we're better off. Remember, there's no new technology or new resources. We simply shifted where we put our resources to achieve more products, okay? So now you might say, okay, well, fine, you know, the world is better off, but I don't care about the world as a whole. Am I better off, right? So let me show you with the last minute we have question E, okay? So we might go over by a minute, I apologize, but this is important, okay? So do we individually each get better off? Okay, so before trade, we said, okay, the US is producing, okay, 18 large, roughly right here, and 16 small, okay? So 18 and 16, call this point A, okay? This is where we were before trade, right? And we said this is how much we were producing and consuming, because if we don't trade, how much we produce is how much we get to consume, right? Now, Brazil was at 8 and 6, so call this point X, okay? So that was Brazil's production and consumption point before trade. Everybody with me, right? Now we said once we do allow trade to happen and at 1 large for 2 small, both countries will agree to this term. And then we know, okay, the US will specialize in large, so we'll go to point B. We'll produce at point B. And Brazil will produce at point Y, right? We will only make what we have comparative advantage in. Okay, again, everybody with me so far? Okay, now let's say we come together and trade. We can trade any amount to show the same effect, but to make things simple, let's say the US sells 10 large airplanes to Brazil. At this term of trade of 1 large for 2 small, how many can we get back? We can get 20 small airplanes back, right? So that means, let's look at our consumption. We made 30 large airplanes. We sold we sold 10 to Brazil. So that means we still have 20 large left for ourselves to consume, right? And the 10 large we sold to Brazil got us 20 small airplanes back. So our consumption all of a sudden is at 20 large and 20 small. This is called point C. That's our consumption. Well, point C lies above our PPF. What do we call a point that's above our PPF? Unattainable.
Unattainable.
Right, so point C, if we were to try to reach point C on our own, given our resources and technology, we would never get there. However, through trade, we're consuming at a level higher than what we could do, what we could produce. In fact, if you connect B and C, okay, this red line becomes your consumption possibilities frontier for trade. So with trade, you get to consume at a higher level as soon as you trade. Even if you only sell 1 large airplane, so you have 29 for yourself, and you get 2 back, that 29 and 2 is going to be a point slightly above your PPF. I know I didn't do the 29 close enough, right? So it's going to be right there. So as soon as you trade, you start consuming higher than your PPF. So the US is better off. What about Brazil? Well, Brazil produced 30 small ones. They sold 20 to the US, so they have 10 left. And for those 20 small, they got 10 large back. So they are consuming here at point Z. They're also better off. If you connect Z and Y, that's their consumption consumption possibilities frontier for trade. So both countries ended up being better off through trade. Just one last thing, remember the US has absolute advantage in everything, right? But that didn't matter. It's not about who can make more, it's about if we're different. If we're different, trade will benefit both parties involved. Okay? All right, that makes sense? Okay, I'm sorry for going over a few minutes. I'm gonna stop now, and if you have questions, I'll stay behind to answer. Otherwise, next week, okay, don't forget, we don't have class on Monday, but in order to keep our schedule, I will have a video that I want you to watch before class on Wednesday, okay? So you do have your concept check quiz for chapters 4 and 5, and then that video before our class on Wednesday, okay? All right, thank you. And I'll stay behind for any questions.
Thank you.
Brother